I'm standing on some grass, knowing it's on concrete, and I'm not without handcuffs. And now I feel like it's just a matter of time. Now I can be able to go and do what I want.
Although it's not known at this time if Brandley will have to stand trial again, his attorney says he's ready.
I think that we're in as good a position as we could possibly be in now. We're ready for trial, and would like to have a trial unless they dismiss the case.
After leaving TDC, Brandley's first stop was at a convenience store for a cherry Coke, something he said he couldn't get on death row. After leaving the Ellis unit at TDC, Brandley did not stop in Montgomery County. Instead, he came here to Houston, Preston Avenue Baptist Church, for a prayerful reunion with his brother.
And that you have indeed freed an innocent man from execution. And after 9.5 years of being on death row.
And then it was off for the long-awaited reunion with his mother.
I'm Alan Hamburger, 13 Eyewitness News. So what is next now for Clarence Brandley, and what happens with his legal fight for freedom? That was the topic of discussion tonight at the Shape Community Center by the Coalition to Free Clarence Lee Brandley. Don Cobos joins us live from the Shape Center, where he has more on tonight's meeting. Don?
Well, Dave, many of the friends and people that made this day possible for Clarence Lee Brandley were here.
Court ruling that overturned Brandley's conviction.
My appeal to the United States Supreme Court is not frivolous, and I would not be pursuing it if I thought otherwise.
Most everyone in this town of 18,000 has an opinion about the case. Brandley's supporters have long cried racism played a part in the all-white jury's conviction.
I think they know who the killer is, or killers. I'll be honest with you, I actually believe they know, but because of their pride, I don't think they're going to bring it out.
Some people here will tell you they know for sure Brandley is guilty, but most who believe he should stay behind bars don't want to talk about it on TV.
I do believe that we as citizens need to be protected.
Another janitor at Conroe High School the night of Cheryl Ferguson's rape and murder has just been arrested in Liberty County for 5 counts of sexual assault on a child. That man, Henry Martin Peace, was the person who found Ferguson's body.
You got a former janitor that was there at the same time over in another county jail for sexually attacking someone. Wouldn't you question that?
That scenario was investigated at the time and found to be untrue.
The DA says he's convinced the real killer is the man who left death row today, and Peter Spears will keep working to get Clarence Brandley back there. In Conroe, Ken Kalthoff, Channel 2 News.
And District Attorney Spears has 90 days to prepare his papers for that appeal to the Supreme Court.
A full-fledged search is on tonight for 2 boys, 6 years old,
going to appeal this case, and so they feel like that battle that they've talked about all this time is not yet over. And quickly, Dave, the schedule for the rest of the week: tomorrow night at the Creston Avenue Baptist Church at his brother's church, there'll be a prayer service. No time has been set there yet that we know of. And Thursday, Brandley will be here behind us at a news conference to answer questions from the media.
Okay, thank you, Don. Strange twist in the Brandley story has surfaced tonight with the arrest of a key witness in that murder case. Henry Icky Peace being held without bond in the Liberty County Jail, charged with 5 counts of sexual assault involving 2 young girls last year. He was arrested on Friday. Peace had been a co-worker of Brandley's at Conroe High School and was the janitor who discovered the body of Cheryl D. Ferguson. He testified in an October 1987 evidentiary hearing that resulted in a judge's recommendation that Brandley receive a new trial. Prosecutors say there is no evidence to link Peace to that murder. Former Houston police officer Alex Gonzalez.
Part of Denver Harbor in northeast Houston had been victimized by a high crime.
Spears says that would be nearly impossible. But Spears is still convinced Brandley is guilty of the 1980 rape and murder of 16-year-old Cheryl D. Ferguson. So he plans to appeal the order to the U.S. Supreme Court. Still, he did not stand in the way of Brandley's release on a $75,000 bond, although he says he didn't have much choice.
We had a scenario with a state legislator from Harris County, and I can't remember, I think it was Ron Wilson, but getting up on the steps of the capital of the state of Texas and saying, if, essentially telling the Court of Criminal Appeals, if you don't release Brandley, that it's going to look like Miami or something like that. Obviously, there are some unstable people involved in the coalition to free Clarence Brandley, and that obviously was a factor that I took into account.
Spears has 90 days to file his appeal with the Supreme Court. The justices would then take at least 2 more months to decide whether they'll even hear the case. In the meantime, Brandley plans to live in Houston. Norm Ewell, 11 News.
While Brandley spent his first night out of jail in seclusion with his mother and family, some of the people who helped make that freedom possible gathered at the Shape Community Center. Friends and supporters at the center have waited 10 years for the day that Brandley would walk free. Still, they say it is not yet time to rejoice. They say that justice won't be served until the person they call the real killer of Cheryl Lee Ferguson is convicted.
Any economic class until the system finally works.
So right now, I'm not going to celebrate. I don't think we are going to celebrate. Not yet. Not yet. We're not saying that we don't have a victory. We're just saying that our victory is not, we aren't at the stage or the level that we want to be. And that's complete and absolute justice. And that's when we are going to do a little celebrating. But we got a long ways to go.
Supporters say they may hold a public rally for Brandley later on in the week. And one of the key witnesses in the murder case of Clarence Brandley has been put in jail. He worked with Brandley as a janitor at Conroe High School. Nancy Holland reports the man faces 5 charges of aggravated sexual assault of a child.
Henry Peace, nicknamed Icky, has been charged with the aggravated sexual assault of 2 little girls, 8 and 10. According to the Liberty County Sheriff, those assaults allegedly happened between May and November of last year at Peace's home near Cleveland.
He more or less lured them into these positions to assault them and threatened them with welfare people and child protective services removing them from their home if they told anyone about these occurrences.
Sheriff Stewart says his investigation is continuing. So far, Peace has had nothing to say about the current sexual assault charges or about the 10-year-old murder and rape of Cheryl Ferguson.
Certainly makes you curious. However, we have no facts at this time to substantiate any allegations.
Liberty County authorities say if their counterparts in Montgomery County want to question Peace, they will be happy to cooperate. In Montgomery County, District Attorney Peter Spears says Peace was initially a suspect in the case, but Spears says there was no evidence that linked him to the crime. The DA says these latest charges against Peace do not change that fact.
As I understand the situation, it involved classic pedophilia with 8 and 9-year-old victims and nothing like a violent rape of a teenage girl.
Henry Peace remains in jail in Liberty, where he is being held without bond. The sheriff's office says it is investigating other possible charges against him, including 2 that may involve young boys. Nancy Holland, 11 News.
A former Houston police officer accused of murder will stand trial in another city. Lawyers for Alex Gonzalez argued that he couldn't.
3 people who hosted the program bombarded the audience with statistics about the extent of the drug problem in Dallas. Viewers were urged to call a team of narcotics agents who were offering up to $10,000 rewards for tips leading to the arrests of fugitives. Victims of drug abuse were urged to call for help. But clearly the purpose of this 2-hour program shown on all 3 network-affiliated stations was to warn parents about the danger of drugs for their kids. There were profiles of teenage drug abusers such as Laura.
This is a slow way of killing myself, but it didn't bother me.
By the time the program had ended, the police claimed they'd received thousands of tips that could lead to drug arrests. Thousands of others called for help. And the Dallas Crime Commission, which produced the program, proclaimed it a success. Jim Cummins, NBC News, Dallas.
In sports, the nation's top college basketball team survives a scare, and the New York Jets are still looking for a head coach. Don Criqui is next on NBC News at sunrise.
Janitor had been incarcerated since 1980 when he was accused in the sexual assault and murder of Cheryl Ferguson. Tom Dickerson has more.
Clarence Brandley's attorney, Mike DeGuerin, arrived at the Montgomery County Courthouse Tuesday morning for what he hopes is the last time for a matter concerning the Brandley case. After meeting briefly with Montgomery County District Attorney Peter Spears, DeGuerin and Spears went before State District Judge Lee Allworth to request that Brandley be released on bail. The judge granted the request, and an emotional DeGuerin made the announcement to a crowd of waiting reporters and cameras.
The judge has set bail at $75,000. He has approved the bond. He has now issued an order that I'm following down to get it certified, ordering the Texas Department of Corrections to release.
It was a statement DeGuerin had been waiting to make for years, but due to the euphoria of the moment, couldn't finish. After finishing the necessary paperwork, DeGuerin left immediately for Huntsville to witness his client's release from prison. Meanwhile, Montgomery County Prosecutor Peter Spears held a news conference to announce he will appeal the decision to overturn Brandley's conviction to the U.S. Supreme Court. Despite admitting it would be impossible to retry Brandley, Spears maintains Brandley is guilty of the murder for which he was convicted, and that racism played no part in Brandley's case.
I just flatly deny that racism had anything to do with the conviction of Clarence Brandley. There's simply, in my view, absolutely no credible evidence to establish that.
But Clarence Brandley's sister, Nellie Bion, and other Conroe residents disagree with the DA's opinion.
I feel that District Attorney Peter Spears should actually, if he decides to do anything, is go after the real killers and let Clarence Lee Brandley go free.
I'd like to know what they're going to say to a man who's been incarcerated for 9 years, that they don't even have enough evidence to retry it. Kind of a shame, isn't it?
So despite getting out of prison, Clarence Brandley's legal battles are not over yet. His continued freedom must now be decided by the highest court in the land. Reporting from the Montgomery County Courthouse in Conroe, Tom Dickerson, 13 Eyewitness News.
And out in Utah, the Rockets fell to the Jazz last night, 102-94. Now look at morning traffic.
Outside of the gate and knowing that now I'm standing on some grass, knowing it's on concrete and I'm not without handcuffs, and now I feel like it's just a matter of time. Now I can be able to go and do what I want.
The state's highest criminal court ruled Brandley did not get a fair trial for the 1980 rape slaying of 16-year-old Cheryl Ferguson. Brandley supporters in his hometown claim the conviction was the result of an all-white jury. They claim authorities overlooked other suspects and refused to go after them now.
They're not going at the real killer. They'd be too embarrassed.
I, just flatly deny that racism had anything to do with the conviction of Clarence Brandley.
The district attorney insists the real murderer just left death row, and he'll ask the U.S. Supreme Court to put Brandley back there.
My appeal to the United States Supreme Court is not frivolous, and I would not be pursuing it if I thought otherwise.
For now, Clarence Brandley enjoys the embrace of his family.
That's been a long time. It's been so long I can't remember now.
You can't do that on death row.
No, you can't embrace or do anything of that like.
In Houston, Ken Kalthoff for NBC News.
Looking ahead to today's market day, here's the Wall Street Journal's Doug Cease. You have been on...
Who have waited 10 years for their reunion. Clarence Brandley spent his first night as a free man with family and friends. Brandley is free on bond after serving 10 years for a murder which he says he did not commit. We have two reports, beginning with Channel 2's Bill Pounders.
For the first time in nearly a decade, a mother gets to touch her son. Clarence Brandley is home.
It's been praying, and I said, how long, Lord? How long do we have to wait? How long?
It's a day Brandley will never forget. He'd been on death row for the rape and murder of Cheryl Ferguson. Now he was free on $75,000 bond, thanks to the Texas Court of Appeals that said Brandley did not get a fair trial.
It's a great feeling just walking outside of the gate and knowing that now I'm standing on some grass, knowing it's on concrete and I'm not without handcuffs.
I was beginning to wonder whether this day would come, but it's here.
In front of the church, which helped raise funds for Brandley, people welcomed Brandley to freedom. A sister was overcome with joy.
I have great faith in God, and with God, nothing is impossible. So I knew that this day would come.
A son said he wanted to make up for lost time.
I go to the movies and I'll go shopping or something.
And now a mother is overwhelmed with thanks.
It just made me feel good. Well, I could touch my son, and he'd be released, and where he can breathe fresh air.
Many family members are still upset that Brandley went to prison in the first place, but for now that's been overshadowed with the joy of seeing him home. Bill Pounders, Channel 2 News Today.
So thank you.
The Free Clarence Brandley Committee has met each Tuesday for 2 years now. Events of the day made this gathering special.
Father, regardless of what the inmates might try to do to entrap your people, you always provide a watchman, a word, and a way out.
Dozens of community activists joined hands with family members over the years with hopes of seeing Brandley walk free. The fact that he has brings tears of joy and frustration.
It's impossible to make up for the 10 years of his life and the 10 years of our lives.
Supporters say the Brandley struggle does not end here.
we give thanks, and that's first, and we are going to continue to fight and do what's necessary to make sure that those who killed Sheriff Ferguson are arrested, tried, and convicted.
And they pledged to open a Pandora's box in Conroe and nearby communities.
Bring us the smoking gun, the evidence, the witnesses, and the testimony of the evil, wrongdoing, racist criminal justice that's been done in Montgomery County. We will stand with you, and we will make sure that those officials are brought to justice as well.
This Free Clarence Brandley sign has been outside the Shape Center for 2 years, but despite today's news, supporters say it won't come down until Brandley's name is completely cleared.
Amy Huggins, Channel 2 News Today.
Meanwhile, the custodian who in 1980 found Cheryl Ferguson's body is charged with molesting 2 girls in Liberty County. He is Henry Peace. He's jailed on 5 counts of sexual assault. At one time, he was a suspect in the rape and murder of Cheryl Ferguson.
You got a foreman janitor that was there at the same time over in another county jail for sexually attacking someone. Wouldn't you question that?
That scenario was investigated at the time and found to be untrue.
In October 1987, Peace told an appeals court that another janitor, not Clarence Brandley, killed young Cheryl Ferguson. A judge will decide where Alex Gonzalez will stand trial for murder, but it will not be here in Houston. Judge Ted Poe Tuesday decided that Gonzalez cannot get a fair...
The White House is getting set to go on the offensive this morning over U.S. policy towards China.
KTRK-TV Houston. Good morning, Texas. This is Eyewitness News at 7 a.m. with Tom Cook. Don Nelson's traffic reports. And Doug Brown's weather. Now, Eyewitness News.
We begin today with a story that could have ended tragically. 2 boys playing in some North Harris County woods near their home disappeared last night. Law enforcement authorities mounted a search, but as word of the boys' disappearance spread, neighbors came out and forced to help. As Dina Marks reports, missing in the Gulf of Mexico since yesterday afternoon. Coast Guard officials say the chopper left an oil rig about 90 miles offshore and was en route to Sabine when it had to divert because of bad weather. The helicopter was last heard from at 4:30, and Coast Guard officials
between Soviet troops and Azerbaijani militants.
Warning in nearly 10 years that Brandley is not waking up in a jail cell. He was released from Texas death row at TDC's Ellis unit in Huntsville yesterday after Texas courts decided Brandley either should be retried or let go. Brandley walked out of the Ellis unit about 1:15 yesterday afternoon, and it was clear this was the moment he had been waiting for. He told reporters he was on his way to see his mother and his children.
See them and meet them and just be able to embrace them for the first time, because like I said, when I left, I was a little kid. Now they are teenagers.
Did you ever think this day would ever come?
No, I really didn't. You know, like I said, usually when you continue to have things you think it's going to finally work out, and every time like something you hope be dashed, you begin to get doubtful. You know, it's a great feeling just walking outside of the gate and knowing that now I'm standing on some grass, knowing it's on concrete and I'm not without handcuffs, and now I feel like it's just a matter of time. Now I can be able to go and do what I want.
Brandley has been on death row since he was convicted in 1980 for the death of Belleville High School student Cheryl Ferguson. He is out on $75,000 bail as his case awaits a possible review by the U.S. Supreme Court. After leaving the Ellis unit, he was reunited with his brother Ozell, who has fought tirelessly for his release. So the question is, what's next for Clarence Brandley, and what happens with his legal fight for freedom? That was the topic of discussion last night at the Shape Community Center. It was this discussion held by the Coalition to Free Clarence Lee Brandley. Don Cobos has more.
Once a week for more than 3 years now, most of these people gathered in this little circle plotting strategy and looking for answers that would help free death row inmate Clarence Lee Brandley. Earlier on Tuesday, outside the walls of death row in Huntsville, their dream became a reality.
Wonderful day, a day that we've looked forward to for a long time, and Clarence is a free man today, and I've got a chance to hug him, I got a chance to talk with him, got a chance to eat with him.
I'm thrilled. I mean, I'm very thrilled, and I think Texas ought to be thrilled. The nation ought to be thrilled.
All I want to do is to enjoy it, and right now all I want to do is to see my brother and hug him and tell him how much I love him.
This group of friends and family members wasted little time moving on and establishing the next step in their fight. In an attempt to keep this issue before the public, a prayer service, a community rally, and a news conference will be held, all within the next few days. But after 3 years of a seemingly endless struggle, Reverend J. Don Boney says this important battle has been won, but not the war.
We have to ensure that these legal victories that we've won are ensured all the way through the Supreme Court. There are no assurances that the Supreme Court won't hear it or that they won't overturn it.
Reverend Boney and the coalition say they still need to make plans to take a trip to Washington, D.C. See, the coalition believes that Montgomery County District Attorney Peter Spears plans on taking this case to the Supreme Court, and that's why the coalition wants to be ready. At the Shape Community Center, Don Cobos, 13 Eyewitness News.
The Brandley case has always had strange twists, and there was one more, even as he was being released. Police announced they had arrested a key witness in the murder case. Henry Icky Peace is being held without bond in the Liberty County Jail after being arrested Friday and charged with 5 counts of sexual assault involving 2 young girls last year. Peace had been a co-worker of Brandley's at Conroe High School and was the janitor who discovered the body of Cheryl D. Ferguson. He testified in October 1987 that resulted in a judge's recommendation that Brandley receive a new trial. Prosecutors say there is no evidence linking Peace to the murder of Cheryl Ferguson. Alex Gonzalez claimed he couldn't get a fair trial in Harris County. Now a judge has agreed, and Gonzalez will be going elsewhere to face murder charges.
I always will be,
Buck Ferguson still lives in the house on a hill among the rolling hills of Austin County, where 10 years ago he and his 16-year-old daughter Cheryl lived. Now retired and in failing health, Ferguson occupies his time by doing sculpture. But the memories of the 16-year-old, he says, was, quote, an exceptional child, are still vivid. So are the memories of her death and the 10-year saga of her accused killer, Clarence Brandley. Ferguson says he has trouble understanding how anyone who has heard all of the testimony and the evidence could believe Brandley is innocent.
I don't think that anyone other than the defense attorneys that's investigated it has come away believing he's innocent.
However, Ferguson believes that despite Brandley's release, one day justice will be done in this case.
We may not know anything about it, but it'll happen. And if he's guilty, as I believe he is, well, he's got to live with it. I mean, he knows he is.
Despite his feeling Brandley is guilty, Ferguson says he's not angry at anyone because Brandley is now a free man. He says anger would just be a waste of energy. He says he thinks politics played more of a role in Brandley's release than the actual facts of the case. Ferguson says it seems a lot of folks have forgotten about the victim in this case, but he never will.
And I guess that this will stay with me from now, I'm sure. It will never be over.
Reporting from near Belleville, Tom Dickerson, 13 Eyewitness News.
15-year-old boy. And while Houston will be in the limelight tomorrow with Bush's announcement, Houston's mayor was also attracted.
Worried about what I ate. Then I had a heart attack. I couldn't find healthy food that was really great tasting.
Smith with weather and Mark Berman on sports.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Barajas. Fran Fawcett has a night off. A joyful noise in a Houston church tonight as friends and supporters of Clarence Brandley gather to give thanks. Brandley was freed from death row yesterday, his conviction for the murder of 16-year-old Cheryl Ferguson overturned. And tonight, he's attending a special church service. Our Olga Campos is standing by live with the story. Olga?
That's right, Mike. We're here in the foyer of the Creston Baptist Church where the service has just ended. This, of course, was one of Clarence Brandley's first stops yesterday after being released from prison. And this is where the entire Brandley family has drawn much of their spiritual strength throughout this long ordeal. Tonight, this close-knit group gathered again, this time to give thanks for what they say are prayers that have been answered. Indeed, joyous feelings are being felt tonight among the friends and family of Clarence Brandley. They are individuals brought closer together in the long struggle to gain his release. The former death row inmate received a warm welcome as he entered the church. Among those waiting to greet him, his mother, who says she drew her strength from God and the kindness of others.
Knowing that others would call me and tell me they are praying for me, they are not going to let us go through it alone. That makes you feel good when you have friends that's standing by and going through with you. And then people's praying, and not only praying, give us their money.
But added to the prayers of thanks are words of commitment to continue the fight for justice in the name of Cheryl Ferguson, the young girl Brandley was convicted of killing. Those who claim his innocence now vow to fight for the conviction of her killers.
The testimony and evidence presented in the evidentiary hearing in Galveston and the order by Perry Pickett was clear. Robinson and Ackerman were the murderers. And it's clear that we also want an investigation and prosecution of those people who framed Clarence Brandley. By that, I mean State District Judge James Keesan and State District Judge John Martin.
From the pulpit, the testimony became emotional as Clarence Brandley spoke.
And I'm going to let each and every one of you be my witness tonight that from this day forward, that everything that I do, God will be a part of that.
This first day out of prison was a very private one for Clarence Brandley. He spent the day getting reacquainted with family and friends that he hadn't seen in 9.5 years. Tomorrow, members of the Free Clarence Brandley Coalition are planning a news conference, which we will no doubt hear more from the former death row inmate. Mike, back to you.
Okay, Olga, thank you very much. There is no celebrating for the family of Cheryl Ferguson, the girl whose death put Brandley in jail for nearly a decade. For many, Brandley's release opens even more questions about who killed the girl. But one person who's still convinced the questions have already been answered is Cheryl Ferguson's father. Sue Speck reports from Belleville.
Buck Ferguson talked with us in the house that he and his daughter built shortly before she was killed. Mementos from the 16 years of Cheryl Ferguson's life still document the closeness between father and daughter, her third-grade sculpting attempts, his professional works. Buck Ferguson's belief that Clarence Brandley was his daughter's killer isn't shaken by the latest twist in this long and winding legal road, Brandley's release, and the arrest of Brandley's former co-worker, Henry Peace, on 5 counts of sexual assault with children. Peace was also a suspect in the Ferguson case.
It's 10 years after the fact and a little bit different offense, and with smaller children, and there was no, I don't think, any violence involved.
Even with the new development, Ferguson knows there probably will not be a new trial. He says all he can do is hope the Supreme Court will put Brandley back behind bars.
What if the Supreme Court lets him remain out of jail and there is no new trial because there's not enough evidence? Is that going to resolve anything for you? Is this case resolved?
It's resolved in my mind, but if that is their final say, well, we'll just have to accept the 10 years that we extracted from him and be satisfied with it.
Some people are concerned about Clarence Brandley's safety now that he's out of jail. That people, you know, whether they're in Montgomery County or whatever, might come after him now. Have you heard that? And what do you think?
No, and I can't imagine why they would, or why anyone other than me would have any reason to, and I'm certainly not going to.
In Belleville, Sue Speck, Fox 26 News.
A Deer Park businessman is behind bars tonight for alleged
perjury. One of the state key witnesses that was just, it has been made known, public, he was arrested in Liberty County just this week. And this state star witness, Peace by the name, brought a pistol to school, and he perjured himself, and so many other things like this has happened that my brother's attorneys had a right to know about, and yet they did not.
Why do you think the district attorney's office is still certainly indicating it may want to retry him yet again?
Well, my brother Mike DeGuerin is ready for another trial. Peter Spears is afraid of another new trial. And the reason is all the evidence.
And he's the district attorney.
Yes,
you should explain
and he's fearful of a couple of things. But he's not willing to get back into court because we now know who actually killed Cheryl D. Ferguson, an innocent white girl. We know the facts. Judge Jerry Pickett pinpointed and wrote it in his finding of facts and sent them to the Texas Court of Criminal Appeal. Now we have the two chief suspects. One, Gary Ackerman, has already said that James Baxter Robertson was at the school on the day of the murder. The prosecution, Peter Spears and James Keeshan, did everything humanly possible to try to give him an alibi, to try to say he was not there.
This is one of the other janitors?
Yes. One of the, Gary Ackerman is also the other suspect that was seen by another custodian, Henry Sessom, who actually was an eyewitness to the
Well, let's be careful not to indict them right here on Almanac tonight. But getting back to Clarence, if you would, sir, what are the things that he's had to say since his release about this whole experience that you think our viewers would find interesting?
Well, my brother is happy to be out, and he says, thank God. And he said from now on, since God has delivered him in such a mighty way, that he's going to live for God. He's going to walk for God. He's going to talk for God. And he wants to be an influence on the lives of many of the youth who are now finding themselves behind bars.
What sort of a message do you think that this case in particular is sending to other black men in the state of Texas and also around the country?
I think that it is sending a message to them that they must be very careful that they do not fall into the hands of the law enforcement in the state of Texas, because what happened to Clarence could happen to them. Being black is a very dangerous thing. Being poor, it's a very dangerous thing. Being Hispanic is a very dangerous thing. If you get into the hands and you're liable to get indicted when you should not, as Clarence did. There's likely to be many prosecutorial misconduct in your case. And
District Attorney Spears was the person who made the first move to actually set up the bond money to have Clarence released from jail. Why would he do that?
Wait a minute. No, Peter Spears did not put up the bond.
No. He made the initial move.
Well,
he made the initial phone call.
But I understand why he made it. You understand?
That's what I wanted.
The reason why he made it, I now understand. It was the last prosecutor who did all these prosecutorial misconduct, James Keeshan, who's now a state district judge. And it's a shame that Peter Spears, who now has the position and was appointed by Governor Mark White, he had to wait to this present state district judge, who was the former prosecutor, give him the go-ahead. You know, and that's a shame. But of all this evidence, and the evidence that I'm talking about, the blood on the girl's blouse, on Sheriff Ferguson blouse, the prosecution, James Keeshan at the time, who's now state district judge, he fought it with all his might. He would not allow the defense to get the blood samples from these other custodians.
Well, in this case, really isn't over yet, even after all this time, is it?
Well, it's may as well be over almost 99%. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, 6-3, they have looked at it very closely, and they had all of the 7 charges that my brother's attorney Mike raised before that court in Galveston, before Honorable Judge Jerry Pickett, distinguished judge from Midland, Texas. He conceded, and the defense prevailed in all 6 other points.
Okay.
So it's pretty dominant, and the chances are very likely that the Supreme Court will even hear the case. You know, this is one of the worst nightmares in not only the state of Texas and Montgomery County, but in the United States. Former Congressman Mickey Leland, the late Mickey Leland, said, if there's any reason why the death penalty ought to be stopped, look at the case of Clarence Lee Brandley.
Okay, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Claire Casademont, Dan Metter with weather, and Matt Musial on sports. This is KHOU 11 News.
Cheering fans in San Francisco tell the story. Super Bowl 24 is history, and the San Francisco 49ers are world champions again. Good evening, everyone. I'm Claire Casademont. The surprise in tonight's game was not that San Francisco won. That was expected. The surprise was how badly they beat the Denver Broncos. Channel 11 Sports Director Giff Nielsen joins us live from New Orleans with the Super Bowl story. Giff, last night you said there was going to be an upset. Now that just didn't happen today.
Claire, you would have to bring that up. And what we saw in the Superdome this afternoon, I think surprised a lot of people. Certainly surprised me, maybe disappointed me just a little bit because I really felt like the Denver Broncos were going to play a better football game. Certainly the 49ers had it their way. We may have just seen one of the best football teams ever in NFL history, maybe the best in NFL history, a record-setting performance by quarterback Joe Montana. 5 touchdown passes on the day for Montana. Here's one in the second quarter to tie a Super Bowl record for touchdown passes in a career. 38 yards to his favorite receiver, Jerry Rice. That made it 27-3 at halftime. He breaks the record in the third quarter. To Rice again, 28 yards for his 10th career Super Bowl touchdown pass. 4th of the game. He ended the Super Bowl with 5 touchdown passes, no interceptions. The final, 49ers 55, Broncos 10, as San Francisco becomes only the second team to win 4 Super Bowls.
You know, it's hard, like I said, it's always hard to compare, but it's hard to take any team above this one. You know, they was both offensively and defensively, we played well down the stretch, and it's tough to say any team's better than this, but, you know, again, I always hate to compare things when, you know, there's always too many different teammates, and they're all special.
Can this team win 5 Super Bowls? Well, a lot of things have to remain the same, I believe, in order for it to happen. And one of the main things is Mike Holmgren, the offensive coordinator for the 49ers. He's been looked at by other teams to become a head coach. We'll see what happens, and we'll have more in sports in just a few minutes, Claire, but my prediction was out the window.
You said it, Giff. Thanks. We'll hear from you a bit later. Hundreds of Houston truckers are pulling their rigs off the road tonight.
Has moved up the country's first
going broke. Rising fuel prices are only part of the problem, as our Janet Shamlian reports.
That's it for me. I'm shut down till it's over. Till this is over, my truck doesn't move an inch.
Bill McCurley won't be driving for the next few days.
I've had it. I'm fed up with it.
And the cast iron pieces he's hauling aren't going to be delivered on time. McCurley and other independent truck owners and operators say they can't make a living anymore, and it's time to fight back.
And at 60 cents a mile, there's no way we can make it. Unless the freight rates come back up and fuel prices go down, we're going to starve.
These drivers have shut down to take part in the protest, which officially starts Monday. Truckers say the little guy is going out of business, a result of deregulation, low cargo rates, and the high cost of diesel, about $1.20 a gallon in Houston.
I took a load, committed myself to a load right after Christmas, and by the next morning when I loaded, fuel went up 40 cents a gallon. I didn't make a dime off the load. Brought it back to Houston, from El Paso. I mean, I came for free.
Maintenance, toll fees, and insurance only adds to their struggle.
Those most affected by the work stoppage are likely to be the businesses that are waiting for the products on these trucks. And ultimately, consumers could be hit too.
The drivers of these trucks plan to picket the Port of Houston and several shipping companies to make their case. Janet Shamlian, 11 News.
Harris County Sheriff's deputies are looking for help in identifying the body of a woman found near Intercontinental Airport this morning. Investigators say the woman had been run over by a car and dragged down the road. Tonight, deputies still don't know who she is.
She is 5 foot 6 inches, 93 pounds. She's got brown eyes, shoulder-length black hair, and like I say, she had the gold-colored wedding band on the ring finger of the left hand. That's basically all the information we have at this time.
If you have any information that could help identify the woman, please call the Harris County Sheriff's Homicide Division at 221-7320. This was the first Sunday of freedom for former death row inmate Clarence Brandley. Brandley was convicted of the rape and murder of 16-year-old Cheryl Ferguson back in 1980. His conviction was overturned last year, and Tuesday he was released. Tonight, he's listening to those who helped him gain his freedom. Carolyn Campbell reports.
Singing, clapping, and praying have replaced years of protest. Former death row inmate Clarence Brandley spent Super Bowl Sunday listening to the words and songs of friends and supporters.
Together,
all of us achieve the impossible dream.
It was a time to recall years of frustration and anger. And one speaker told the crowd the job isn't done until what he described as official prejudice in Conroe ends.
Conroe needs to fix it. I intend to stay there and try to help fix it. All right.
Times roller coaster.
Brandley's defense attorney, Mike DeGuerin, got a standing ovation as he thanked everyone for their support. As a collection plate was passed, these people looked to the future after the end of a 10-year struggle. Carolyn Campbell, 11 News.
Mayor Kathy, in the federal deficit that is just within the Graham-Rudman balanced budget law. Some congressmen, however, are expecting a battle in Congress to repeal Graham-Rudman, led by those who feel this government can continue spending in the red. Specific budget items affecting Houston include an estimated $2 billion increase in NASA's budget for the space station, but no significant increase for the proposed super-collided site. Texas Senator Phil Gramm joins us live now from Washington to talk about tomorrow's budget unveiling. Senator, thank you, first of all, for joining us. And let me ask you, Grove Missionary Baptist Church tonight. Among those attending the service was Brandley's attorney, Mike DeGuerin. Earlier today, Brandley appeared on a radio talk show. He thanked listeners for their support and urged them to continue fighting against injustice.
Even when you have been through all the things.
Thank you to all the people who have been very supportive of me. And I'll ask that the people will continue to be involved, not only just in my situation, but I hope that they would come together and participate with other people who they see and know that are in the struggle trying to help other people.
Brandley was released from prison 5 days ago after spending nearly 10 years on death row for the murder of Belleville teenager Cheryl Ferguson. Well, the 49ers made quick work of the Denver Broncos.
Indicted on the basis of a story Conroe authorities never bothered to check out. 11 News reporter Philip Bruce has more tonight in this special report.
Okay, next row.
You can see them at work most any day in Conroe, going from car to car, passing out what looks like just another bit of junk mail for your windshield. But this is no flyer for a charity bake sale or a church car wash. It's a personal letter from a desperate man who's trying to convince a town that he's innocent.
I reckon there'll always be a doubt in some people's mind once a person is accused of this type of a crime.
Ken Rogers is a Conroe electrician who always had a good name until recently. That was before his secretary accused him of trying to force her to have sex in Rogers' office.
There was witnesses outside that saw me get in the truck and leave. There was witnesses next door.
The secretary told police it happened exactly at 4:35 p.m. But several of her coworkers swear they were sitting around this table drinking coffee with a woman at the time she and Rogers supposedly were here alone. Rogers says he'd already gone home after getting into a shouting match with the secretary over not giving her a raise.
If the Conroe Police Department would have simply came down and just asked a few questions, or asked the people, asked the other tenants, asked the folks right out here in the shopping center, this wouldn't have never happened to me.
In fact, there was no investigation at all before Conroe police arrested Rogers based solely on the woman's complaint. In sexual assault cases, authorities try not to treat victims with suspicion. But in this case, Conroe's police chief got a call from Rogers' lawyer warning him that this alleged victim had a close friend on the police force who was pushing detectives to make an arrest.
He was essentially blaming the whole occurrence on the person who made the complaint and one of the officers having a friendship.
The friend was Bobby Campbell, who just resigned from the police force to take a job with a private company.
I had no part in the investigation. I had nothing to do with anything. I never tried to persuade anybody one way or the other.
But Campbell was there the day Rogers was arrested, even though it was his day off.
The squad car was parked right here, right where this white car is sitting.
Campbell confirms he helped Officer C. Johnson take Rogers into custody.
They took Johnson's cuffs off of me. Campbell put his on me, and he said this is kind of a personal thing anyhow. And once he got them on me, he just twisted them. And they did cut my wrist, cut into me.
No, there was nothing ever personal about it.
Campbell does admit he was good friends with the woman's husband and knew the couple well. But the grand jury never heard any of this when it voted to indict Ken Rogers for attempted sexual assault. The jurors only heard from the woman,
who told them the same story she had told police.
The first prosecutor to handle this case was a newcomer to the DA's office named Elizabeth Mobley. She declines to be interviewed, but Mobley tells us off camera that she asked for an indictment because in her gut she believed the secretary was telling the truth. But at no time did the DA's office ever send one of its investigators out to ask questions, nor did the Conroe police. That in spite of the fact that authorities all knew they had serious reason to doubt the victim's mental stability. The DA's office knew she'd received extensive treatment 2 years ago at a local mental hospital. And they'd heard rumors she'd accused a father and son of trying to rape her just a year ago. Still, they stuck with the case until the woman agreed to take a polygraph test. That's when a new, more experienced prosecutor realized there was a problem.
There was something about what happened that she was unwilling apparently to tell us.
Walker says a polygraph showed the woman was lying about something. When he asked her for more information, she and her husband packed up and left Conroe. Montgomery County authorities later dropped the indictment, claiming they didn't know where to find the woman. But Officer Bobby Campbell knew. He had breakfast with the couple the day before they moved.
Did y'all see Ken Rogers that day?
Yeah, he was in the restaurant as well.
Can you tell me anything that occurred?
Nothing. No words were spoken, no looks were given, no eye gestures, no anything.
In spite of all the circumstances and all the witnesses a grand jury never knew about, Montgomery County officials say the system worked. But don't tell it to Ken Rogers. On the day charges against him were dropped, the Conroe Optimist Club asked him to resign as president.
The main thing that struck me was, there again is the faith, the blind faith that our community has in our legal system. Because the reason given to me was, well, Ken, since you was indicted, there must be something to it.
That's why he continues to paper Conroe with his side of the story. A story the halls of justice in Montgomery County never saw fit to hear.
So no letter to Mr. Ken Rogers.
Philip Bruce, 11 News, Conroe.
Houston police admit they may have a bigger problem with crime in the Montrose area.